Welcome back to In Depth with Academia. I'm Richard Price, CEO of academia.edu, and well, I'm really glad you're tuning in again today. We're diving into another fascinating topic straight from the heart of academic research. Remember, I'm here to walk you through the ideas and findings from this week's paper, but as always, I'm presenting it neutrally, just the messenger, not advocating or endorsing the research itself. So today's episode is all about, let's see, cognitive accessibility governance, closing the capability gap, by Gareth Slinn. This is a big one. If you've ever felt lost or frustrated trying to use a complex website or digital service, or honestly, if you know someone who has, this conversation is for you. Let's start with the core question here. Why, after decades of guidelines and technical standards, do most digital experiences still leave people with cognitive or neurological differences on the sidelines? Why do well-meaning companies so often struggle to make their digital products truly usable for everyone? And more importantly, what can we do about it? You might be thinking, hey, isn't digital accessibility a solved problem with all those standards and compliance checklists? But the paper's first key insight is, no, not really. Cognitive accessibility, which means making digital stuff usable for people with differences in memory, attention, comprehension, or reasoning, is still kind of the new frontier. Oh, and this affects way more people than most realize. Take this in. We're talking about roughly 1.3 billion people globally living with some sort of disability, and within that, huge numbers with cognitive or neurological differences like dyslexia, ADHD, or autism. The author, Gareth Slinn, points out that most organizations approach accessibility as a box-ticking exercise, focused on fixing technical issues at the end, like slapping on a band-aid when it's, honestly, way too late. The thing is, digital services today, they're more complex than ever. Multi-step tasks, dense screens, AI-driven features. Sometimes if you get distracted for even a second, you're like, what was I doing? I mean, that happens to me and I don't even consider myself neurodivergent. Imagine if you have a working memory difference. Yikes. Anyway, to dig into the details, the paper kind of lays out two big problems. First, the numbers haven't really changed. The Web AIM Million report finds that more than 94% of homepages they checked failed to meet current accessibility guidelines in 2025. That's shockingly persistent. Second, and more interesting, Slinn argues this is not just a problem with unclear technology standards. He says what's missing is real governance. What's that mean? Well, governance here is all about organizations taking clear ownership. So instead of just, giving the developer team an audit checklist, you get leadership, product folks, designers, procurement, every team involved at every stage. There are also these, what are they called? Capability models. Right. A way to define exactly what competencies, training, and accountability every role needs to carry cognitive accessibility forward. And something I found interesting was the idea of demonstrable evidence that accessibility is being practiced continuously, not just at the launch phase. Slinn calls for quality indicators that actually persist over time, like ongoing employee training, regular product reviews, and accessible by design processes embedded from the start. Governance is not just an abstract thing, it translates to regular check-ins, measurable outcomes, and a real sense of ownership across teams. Let's pause for a second, just because, well, have you ever tried filling out an online form and like halfway through the page refreshes and everything disappears? That always drives me nuts. Not really the point, I guess, but it does highlight how even minor glitches can become major barriers if you have attention or memory challenges. Okay, back on track. The broader point is this. Slinn suggests that standards and guidelines are important, but what we really need is governance, a coordinated organizational approach that focuses on results for real people, not just compliance paperwork. This is especially important as laws and standards are getting tougher. Think the European Accessibility Act or the next versions of the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. Let me be clear, I'm giving you the summary of the paper's arguments, not saying this is the final word. Academic research is always ongoing and every idea is up for debate and deeper exploration, So, what does all this mean for you, the listener? Well, maybe you're designing websites, managing teams, or maybe you're just someone who wants the digital world to be, less confusing and more welcoming. The big takeaway here is cognitive accessibility isn't just a technical fix, it's a whole system responsibility. If you're part of an organization, maybe start asking who owns accessibility here? How are we measuring outcomes for users with cognitive differences? Are we treating accessibility as a project or as a capability? All right, that's a lot to chew on. Thanks for joining me today on In Depth with Academia. I hope you're leaving with some food for thought and maybe some questions for your own projects or workplaces. Remember, research is about insights and possibilities, not absolute facts. Until next time, keep exploring, stay curious, and make space for everyone in the digital world. See you soon.